And I have the honor to introduce Monica Chin, the Senior Technology Reporter for Business Insider, who's going to have a conversation with Leena Elias from Avast. Digital wellness for our families is so key and so important. I think Chris set it up perfectly when he said, we're not going backwards, we have to go forward, we have to look to the future. And by doing that, we need to be personally responsible and think about digital wellness for ourselves and for our families. Monica?
Hi, everyone. It's an absolute privilege to be here. I'm really excited. This has been a super eventful year as far as digital wellness and digital security are concerned. And I'm really excited to be having this discussion on a topic that is really important to me and I think probably to everyone here, which is digital wellness and digital health, particularly when it comes to families and kids. As well as when it comes to how families should approach this world, as well as how companies and industry leaders should approach this world with families and kids in mind. And whether we're looking at complex smart home security systems or at something as simple as a Chromebook, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a parent who's not like at least a little bit nervous about introducing kids to this ecosystem. But I think we can also all agree that these devices are present, they're here, and it's our responsibility to make sure that our kids are prepared to exist in a world where these devices are there. So that's what we're here to talk about today. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our panelist, Leena Elias, who is the Vice President of Product Delivery at Avast. So Leena, would you like to talk a little bit about your background and your experience in this area?
Sure. So I joined Avast about 2 years ago. I head up a team called Product Delivery, and my team is responsible for implementing and customizing Avast solutions in the family space. We work with network operators and other partners around the world to deliver solutions primarily in the parental controls and location space.
So do you want to talk a little bit about the types of things that Avast is doing in this space, specifically how they're incorporating families into the work that they do?
Sure. So I think most people think of Avast as a cybersecurity company. We've been around for about 30 years, primarily in the antivirus, VPN, and security space. What a lot of people don't know is that we also operate in the parental controls and location space, and that is a growing business for us, and for me personally, one that is very near and dear to my heart. I'm a mom. I have 3 boys. They're 17, 15, and 12, and so this is a space that I feel very passionate about, and Avast has really been doing a lot in that space. So as I mentioned before, we work with network operators to build mobile apps that help families manage their digital lives. And what that means is really helping parents and children understand their online habits, where they're going, how much time they're spending online, and the types of apps and websites that they're visiting.
Awesome. So from my perspective as a journalist, as well as just a person who has parents, I feel like every day I'm hearing new news stories about this and this data breach compromising our data, compromising children's data, cameras being hacked, lots of people nervous about new technologies. And I hear from a lot of people who are nervous particularly about putting these intelligent devices, Echo speakers, stuff like that, in kids' rooms or even having them in their homes. So I'd love to get your perspective, Leena, on the current state of the consumer tech space when it comes to family wellness and safety. So, if you're giving us a report card, how would you assess how kid-family and family-friendly today's consumer tech space is? And what are some of the biggest challenges that tech companies need to overcome to get to a point where families feel safe and secure?
Okay, great. Yeah, there's a lot in that question. So I'll start with, where is the space today? It's really a very nascent space. It's getting a lot of publicity, and we're hearing it talked about a lot more and more, especially as Google and Apple are coming out with their own solutions to address this particular space. But we're still at the beginning. And what we do know is the pace at which digital content and consumption is getting out there it's faster than parents can keep up with it. And so parents need solutions. We know that digital habits and digital addiction, particularly among teenagers and preteens, is growing quite a bit. And I think teenagers themselves are starting to understand that they have addiction issues and that it's impacting their well-being, increasing levels of anxiety, impacting sleep, and just overall wellness. And so both parents and kids, I think, feel the need to get some assistance in this area and just to be able to keep up with that pace of content creation.
So, what do you think? What do you think tech companies' goals should be when it comes to putting out products that families will want to buy, and that families will feel good buying for their kids?
So, I mean, I think understanding what it is, what are the problems that parents and children are trying to solve? That's first and foremost, keeping the customer, the end user in mind, and delivering those types of products to the end user. There's a whole range of parenting styles out there, and these products really do need to cater to a variety of parenting styles. There are, what we call helicopter parents who want to have a very high level of control over what their kids are doing online and really want to understand at a very deep level, what websites are they visiting, what apps are they using, what are all the devices that they have connected? Because we all know teenagers have more than just a cell phone. They might have a laptop, an iPad. So really being able to understand the whole landscape of what they're doing online on all of those devices is really critical. So I think first and foremost, just understanding the end user. Beyond that, making sure that those devices are secure. So there's so many devices that are out there. 2/3 of American families have at least one smart device in their home. More likely, they have upwards of 20, 30, 40 devices in the home. And so being able to explain to the end user how to secure those devices is really critical. This has been in the news a lot, and it's not necessarily only because those devices are not secure, but the way that they're installed within the home is not secure. So things as simple as make sure you set up a new username and password when you install that device. These are the types of things that when you buy a Ring device or you buy a Google device, you feel that by turning it on in your home, you're automatically safe and secure, but that is not the case. There's that additional step that an end user needs to take, and we as end users really do need to take ownership of that and understand the steps that you need to take to secure yourself.
Mm-hmm. And we'll definitely talk a little bit more about parents in a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about the smart home specifically. I think we're seeing every year more devices that are catered specifically to kids, whether we're looking at Fire tablets specifically for kids, Amazon Echo specifically for kids, and a lot of these have parental controls built into them. But lots of tech that kids are just as likely to come into contact with on a daily basis doesn't necessarily have this version. Stuff like smart locks, stuff even like bigger products like TVs, stuff like smart displays. Where are we from your perspective, in terms of making sure that these devices are usable, useful, and also safe for children? And are there any particular product categories where you'd really like to see more, kids-specific products? Mm-hmm.
So just going back to where are we today, again, I think we're just at the beginning. And so families are just starting to understand that they need to have these devices. They feel that they need some assistance in managing their digital home. But we're very much at the beginning of really ensuring the safety and security of your home network and your family and all the devices that are connected to that network. And so again, beginning with consumer education, which is, I think up until now has not really been a priority. I think we'll start to see more and more of that consumer education come out. As these stories emerge in the news, I think all of us are becoming more savvy about how to set up those devices and how to secure your home. We're starting to see more devices out in the market doing that, and Avast is playing in that space as well. We have a solution that we've recently launched called Omni that does help protect the home network.
Cool. And so are there any particular product categories where you think, where either you'd like to see more attention to that area, or you think we might in the future see more attention to that area?
Yeah, I think as we're seeing any of the devices that you have in your home, but particularly where kids become more involved is in digital content that is streamed, so videos, music, even having surveillance cameras within your own home, being able to ensure the safety of that content, and that video content in particular is going to be really critical.
Mm-hmm. It's cool. So we've talked a little bit about what companies can do on their end. When it comes to making sure that your kids are healthy and making sure that your kids are well in this digital space, what are some things that parents can do?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, just keep in mind that these are tools that parents can use and that families can use to help them navigate their digital lives, but they're not complete solutions, and they don't replace parenting. The way I think about it is I need help just understanding what my kids are doing, where they are, but that does not replace a conversation that I might have with my child. And really what I think parents should be looking for in these solutions is information that can be surfaced to them that they may not know about. So for example, has your child suddenly been online in the middle of the night, or on Snapchat at 3 a.m. when typically they should be sleeping? Any change in behavior that might surface to a parent that, hey, something is going on and I should go have a conversation with my child, not necessarily just view that digital content and take it from there. It really has to be a conversation starter for the child.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know you mentioned working with your family in tech. How are you nervous about giving your kids tech devices? And do you think it's possible for us to live in this sort of connected world and feel totally secure with our kids? Do you think that's something we should be striving for, or do you think a little bit of anxiety is something that parents will just have to deal with?
I mean, I think I crossed that bridge a while ago, so and I continue to cross that bridge because my kids got phones somewhere just before high school or so, and it's definitely worrisome because whereas before you would have maybe a group of kids in your home and you could hear their friends talking because they're sitting out in the living room or they're playing video games in the living room, things are happening more and more online, and kids are connected in their own homes and having those conversations in ways that you really can't monitor and be a part of it. So it's definitely worrisome. On the other hand, I do think that there's a lot of good that kids get out of technology. They're using it in school. So there's no way to get around the fact that kids are going to be online. They're required to do so for the most part in most schools and school districts that I know of. So there's no way to get around it. And I do think as parents, we just need to embrace it and find ways to help ourselves navigate that world. And so I definitely do, talk to my kids about what they're doing online. I do explain, when my eldest child started driving, one of the deals we made was that I would be able to track his location. And he's, up until now anyway, been okay with that. Because he knows that in return he gets to drive, and I'm not going to be constantly texting to ask him where he is. Now that may not be everyone's experience or what everyone thinks is normal, but for us that works. And similarly, there are other tools that are out there that help, again, cater to your individual parenting style. But having the conversation with your child, explaining to them why you're using these tools, what the benefit is for them, I think is really critical.
Mm-hmm. One thing I was really interested in that you mentioned earlier was digital addiction, and I think a lot of people, I mean, my parents included, were worried about letting their kids spend too much time on the phone, on the internet, Snapchat, whatever it is. But we have this competing idea that kids do sort of need to learn how to use this stuff and how to be safe on this stuff and gain experience in that space. How would you recommend a parent go about, trying to find the balance there? And just even starting to approach how much time they're gonna let their kids spend doing this stuff.
Again, I think having a conversation with your child about balancing online activities with offline activities. I think it's it's important to continue to go out and play sports or join clubs or do those activities that take you away from your phone and from a screen. And so ensuring that you're balancing that within your family and that you're talking to your kids about having a diverse set of activities that are not just online, I think is really important.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So bring it back a little bit to the responsibilities and obligations of tech companies. One of the main reasons, one of the big topics of CES 2020 has been consumer data and what companies are doing with it. And one of the main reasons that companies often provide for collecting consumer data is, whether we're talking about kids, adults, families, whatever demographic, is that it's necessary and helpful for helping companies and AIs learn how to better serve us and serve our needs and customize their devices to our needs. So in demanding more privacy, which I think is something that all of us probably value to some extent, what are we really sacrificing? How much do these companies really need the data that we're giving them? And should we, including consumers and manufacturers, expect that we're moving towards some sort of compromise? And is such a compromise even possible?
Mm-hmm. I think this came up in the previous chat as well, and data privacy is a huge topic, and make no mistake, it's at the forefront of every tech company's mind right now. There's no way we can get around it, and I do think the onus is on tech companies to not only comply with the regulations, but to get ahead of those regulations and inform customers about how their data is being used. And we're seeing that that legal space is evolving, and it's evolving very rapidly with laws such as CCPA, which just went into effect. There is a requirement for us to comply with that, and so that will continue to evolve. And I think we'll start to see laws like that continue to roll out, not only across the U.S. but globally as well. I do think up until now, consumers have been a little bit taken sort of approach technology from the perspective of, well, I want to use these free tools that are out there, and so I'm okay with giving up a little bit of my privacy. And that, I think, is where we are today. But given that this is in the news a lot, that these laws are coming out, I do think end users are starting to get a little bit more savvy about how their data is being used, and being aware that you can actually go out there and request from a company, how are you using my data? What data have you collected? And then be able to actually download that and view it. We'll start to see users doing more and more of that, and I think as they become more savvy, we'll start to actually, not just skip past that terms and conditions or the end user license agreement that we all, very quickly click past. They'll start to actually read that, and that's really critical. You should know how your data is being used as an end user, and that information is provided to you, but not always really obvious. And so, do take the time. Parents should take the time to read that, understand how their data is being used, and then make an informed decision as to whether or not you want to opt in or not. There's no doubt that data collection is really critical to driving AI algorithms and machine learning. So yes, it's necessary, but we as consumers can also be really smart about when we choose to share that information and not share that information.
So when companies are making devices that kids might come into contact with, whether it's video doorbell, a smart display, even a security camera, why do you think it's so important to protect family privacy specifically? And do you think that there is a greater obligation to protect the security of kids than there is maybe of adults from these companies' perspectives?
Absolutely. I mean, kids don't have a say necessarily in the data that is being collected about them, or they're not perhaps old enough yet or tech savvy enough. We know that kids are, they have iPads as early as 1 or 2. And then from there, it just grows. They're using those iPads to get online. They're playing games. That goes, then from there they move on to video games. They're not always aware that their data is being collected, and it's not fair to assume that a child is necessarily understanding when they consent to that data collection. And so, absolutely, I mean, we have a responsibility to keep kids safe online, and tech companies bear that responsibility for the most part.
Is there any area, whether it's specific products or specific product categories or specific companies or parts of the industry, that you think is doing a really good job right now, or has made any really important advances recently in terms of understanding the end user, as you mentioned, and really giving parents that freedom to be able to decide what's happening with their data and their kids' data?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're seeing with mobile operators today that they are launching more and more solutions that allow parents and families to take some control of the data that children can view and can access, not only through apps, but even at the network level. And I think we'll start to see that more and more, that these parental control solutions, as family plans and unlimited plans become more and more prevalent, we'll start to see that these parental control solutions also become part of that.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So when it comes to family digital wellness, what do you think we are likely to see in the next couple years, or what do you hope that we'll see in the next 3 to 5 years, in terms of both specific advances and generally what you hope the world might look like and how it might be different from today?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think we're certainly going to start to see more AI and machine learning being used in these solutions to deliver smarter solutions to parents. So, as I mentioned earlier, thinking through, parents really do have a very difficult time navigating the digital space and particularly navigating their children's online lives. So surfacing relevant information to the parent is critical. And parents really don't have the time and the bandwidth to be able to sift through tons and tons of information. They need the insights that are most relevant. And that's where AI and machine learning can really help in surfacing those insights that are critical to a parent making a decision or having a conversation with their child. So I think that's sort of one of the biggest areas that we'll see a lot of change in. In terms of solutions for families, I think we'll start to see that, we talk about parental controls, but really I think this space is moving towards what we call digital wellness. And so it's not just about parents having control over what their kids are doing, but it's helping families navigate their digital lives and lead healthier digital lives. And so I think we'll start to see that shift, and we're already starting to see that shift. But again, I think we'll start to see more solutions that not only cater to the different parenting styles, but that also cater to children. So, increase that transparency between parent and child. Not only allow a parent to see what their kid is doing online, but give that information to a child, to the children themselves, so that they can start to monitor what they're doing and take control of what they're doing online and set some limits for themselves. And I think we're starting to see that kids really want to be able to do that and take control of that because they know that many of them know that they're experiencing these issues.
Mm-hmm. Now, one thing you mentioned I think is really interesting, AI and machine learning when it comes to all these kids' devices. Mm-hmm. I definitely hear from some parents who are really excited about it, who think it's great that we have these tools to better adapt to individual kids' needs. And I hear from a lot of parents who are really, really worried that as this AI grows smarter, it's going to intrude more and it's going to, take more of their kids' time and make it harder for them to have that influence. Where do you fall on that AI scary, AI useful scale?
Yeah, I guess this goes back to the privacy question that we're going to continue to grapple with. And again, in many of the tools that we're already using today, we as end users are entering into an implicit contract with those companies to share some of the data that is being collected so that we have a better customer experience. So the two things really do go hand in hand. But again, as an end user, you can take control of what data is being shared, and you can choose to use products and support companies that are reputable and are taking privacy seriously so that you feel more comfortable about the data that is being collected or not collected about you.
Cool. I think my final question with the remainder of the time, I'd love to hear a little bit more about just what the work that Avast is doing right now in this space and specifically, how you guys are grappling with some of the questions that we've talked about, understanding the concerns that parents might have and, helping create that transparency.
Great, yeah. So, we do a lot of work with families specifically, and a lot of the products that we're building are based upon a great deal of research that we do with families, not only parents, but children as well. And so that's really the core of what feeds into how we think about this space. In doing that, what we're seeing is that there are huge differences, not only across the country, but outside of the US in terms of how parents think about parental controls, digital wellness, and even location sharing. In Europe, we're seeing it's far less common to track your children's location, whereas here it's becoming the norm. So definitely some cultural differences, and I think we think about that as we roll out our solutions. We work with mobile operators across the world, and so we do think about how do we need to customize our solutions to cater to those different parenting styles and different cultures. So that's one thing. In terms of the products that we offer, we certainly do want to play very heavily in that digital wellness space and use AI and machine learning to feed the algorithms that we're building and to surface that relevant information to a parent. And so again, catering not only to the parent but also the child.
Awesome. Well, I think there are a ton of changes on the horizon, and it sounds like it's all going to be really exciting. It's certainly exciting as both a consumer and a reporter to watch companies and consumers become aware, as you were saying, of just what it is we want to demand from our technologies. So I'm really optimistic. So I'd like to thank Leena and thank you all for being a great audience and letting us both share our thoughts and perspectives. And thank you everyone for coming out.
Great, thank you.